Other fun things happening around the world, and I just was told there was a couple more earthquakes in California today, for those of you who didn't feel those, which I didn't. But there's so many things you can do to prepare for earthquakes so that they're just not a big deal when they happen. They're just an adventure instead of being a disaster. So I'm going to turn the time over to Mike Slayton. He's heading up the lineup tonight, and we'll get started.
Once again, my name is Mike Slayton. Okay, she's going to dress me with this now. And I'm grateful to be here. I'm a senior construction public works inspector for the city of Lancaster. With that, we wear many hats. With all of us that are present here tonight, the individuals that will be talking also wear many, many hats. I happen to work closely with the governor's office, the assessment team, along with a couple other individuals here. I've worked with FEMA and also the ICS. The purpose of training, which we all do a lot of training, is to better prepare ourselves. And that's the purpose of this meeting here tonight, is so that we might be able to share a little bit of information that will better help you be prepared for some of these items that might occur as far as a flood or fire. Everyday situations. Some people might have a pipe that might break underneath the house, and to some that's a national disaster. A toilet that overflows because it got plugged up, that's a national disaster. But at times, it's real easy to pick up the phone and call the plumber and have that repaired. In a national disaster, there's no one to call. You're on your own. And that's scary when you really stop and think about it. You're all alone. Your neighbors might not be there. And it's nice to know that today, this evening, these individuals that are going to talk, they're going to help you out. They're going to get you to understand what you can do to better prepare yourself. We're going to have, from our community safety specialists, Shelley Henson and Craig Stephan, followed by Carrie Brisson from the LA County Fire Department, which is also in the ICS Instant Command, and he'll be very helpful with the fire. He's also my stepbrother, but he won't probably deny that. And then we have Dan Shea with the Southern California Gas Company. And also we have Mark Van Gilder, which Mark works also for the city of Lancaster with me. He's one of my inspectors. He's also a building inspector as well. And he's going to teach us some things about earthquake, etc. on that. So with that, I appreciate it. Afterwards, we'll have some time for some questions, and there's handouts here that everyone will talk to you about. So I'd like to turn the time over to Shelley Henson. Shelley?
Craig and I are going to do this together, so I'll put the, or we can share.
Yeah, we'll pass it. My name is Craig Stephan. Thank you for inviting us here tonight. Some of my background, I used to work for LAPD, and I used to be a deputy for LA County for about 14 years. We just want to emphasize the need to get ready for this big earthquake that's going to hit. All the experts say that a big earthquake, is going to hit. It's just a matter of when it's going to hit. Just by a show of hands, how many people here are ready if the earthquake hits tomorrow morning? That's a lot better than what we see sometimes. Sometimes we see 50 people and 2 people raise their hands, so that's a very good start. But the main thing is to get ready for this. You can imagine, like right now, if an earthquake hit and nobody was ready and everybody went out and got their cars and went to the nearest market and tried to get water. That's what everybody in Lancaster is going to try to do. It's not going to work. We have to get prepared for this prior to the earthquake. The LA County Sheriffs, unfortunately, are not going to be able to come out to individual houses if this big 7.8, 7.9, 8.0 earthquake hits. There's a lot of targets they have to check as far as the freeways, the hospitals, a lot of the big Motels we have up here right now could possibly collapse. Their time, their effort, once they take care of their families, just like we all do, once they report for work, they're going to be tied up doing things like that. The biggest problem will get the most attention. Individual houses will not, so you have to get prepared prior to this happening. I'll use one example. That if anybody's been up here like in 1996, we had a lot less people up here in 1996. We had the power failure out here on the West Coast, and the whole West Coast was down, and there was no power on a beautiful Saturday afternoon. It was a nice weather, 70 degrees, which is kind of hard up here. Usually it's 100 or it's down in the 40s and windy. But it was a very nice day, and people started going out to the markets. I went out with my wife to one of the local markets on 30th and L. It was very chaotic. I walked in the store. There was the natural sounds that were there before weren't there. There was no music going on. There was no refrigeration. Everything echoed in the store. There was minimum lighting. People were running up and down the aisles just trying to get regular stuff, food, water, and it was very chaotic, almost scary. And this was, in 96, a lot less people up here. Everybody was a little bit more friendly at that time, and it wasn't as chaotic. Went down to 40th and L. They had a plan. They had closed the store, but they had opened one entrance, and they put circles out there, tables out there in a semicircle. They had their staff out there. They had stuff ready out there to go. Even with that, like I said, it was a nice day. People weren't panicking. There was no reason to panic. It was just a power failure. But even at that point right there, people were driving up in their vehicles, hitting the brakes, running to the front of the line, a little pushing and shoving at that time. You can imagine it now. If an earthquake hits in this valley and you're not prepared, and that day when it hits, you're going to try to get in your car, drive with no traffic lights, power lines down, the road uneven, fires going on, other things going on like that. The main thing is to get prepared before this happens. Get prepared for you, get prepared for your family, get this all set up now prior to it happening.
We have 2 handouts tonight here up on the table. One has several handouts. The top page is an emergency checkoff supply list, as well as the ESP Focus. Everything you can download from the internet, any type of preparedness materials you'll find, tell you to be prepared for 72 hours. In our opinion, that's not enough. If we have that 7.8 or higher earthquake, it's better to be, the way we always say, it's better to be safe than sorry. Have more than less. So it's absolutely vital that you have supplies for each member of your family. So in our handouts, we even have information on how to properly strap your furniture to the walls, information and supplies to your pets, how to work with your neighbors, that type of thing. But really make sure when you're putting your supply kits together that you think of your everyday needs. We should have some cash on hand because, as Craig's describing, that huge an earthquake, we're not going to have electricity. If you have to go to the store, if you don't have enough, our credit cards or debit cards aren't going to be working. The cash registers won't be working. So have some cash in small denominations. I would recommend not higher than a $20 bill. So have 1s and 5s and 10s, maybe a few 20s. And obviously it's going to have to be a personal choice how much, the total amount that you have based on the size of your family. It's absolutely vital that you have 1 gallon per person per day of water. That's an absolute, and that's in our materials, so we have that memorized, but and that is actually a good thing to memorize because we can go a few days without food. We can go a few days without food, but we cannot survive without water. So water is absolute the number 1, and make sure you rotate it. Look at the expiration dates. People have asked us, well, how should we, for our supply kits, because you should have 3. 1 for your home, 1 for your car, and 1 for work. Now, I've cheated a little bit. When I'm at work, so is my vehicle. So I get by with 2 supply kits. And again, it comes down to a personal choice. Our best supply kit should be at home. We have a garage, you have Rubbermaid containers. A lot of people use the big rubber garbage cans. So it's a personal choice again, what works best for your family. But a few things to remember there too. If you're using your garage, you don't want to stack water and other type of emergency supplies up high on shelves so if they fall, they break. And water, you do not want to store it directly on cement because the lead from the cement can actually seep through the plastic into the water. So make sure you have it on a pallet or there's carpeting or it's, on plastic, within a plastic container. Yes, there's a question.
Regarding that, what if you didn't know this ahead of time? Does that automatically ruin your barrels or just the water that's in it? If you had it on cement previously?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
If the water's stored on cement, big 55-gallon drums on cement, the water's ruined, right? But the container isn't, right?
Right, you just don't want that lead seeping into the water because then you're going to drink it and then you'll have more lead in the water. So make sure you find the best place. Certainly pantries in the kitchen, that's the best scenario. And certainly if we keep our cupboards well stocked. Some people choose to get the MRE type of food like the military use. And just be cautious there because if that's the type of food that you do have in your supply kits, just make note, I'm trying to be diplomatic with this, our bodies are not used to eating that type of food, so that could cause some issues. One of my favorite supplies is plastic bags. I run marathons in the past, and I remember my first marathon, our coach telling us that I had to get plastic bags for all the team members. And I thought, well, what for? That seems silly. Oh, Shelley, it'll keep you warm. Well, I never realized how wonderful garbage bags were until I ran my first marathon in 30-degree weather. And you just have to punch a hole for your head and your arms. And then when I got too hot, you can crumple it up and stick it in your jacket. But obviously, so we can use those for warmth. Help keep us warm. You can use it to keep the ground dry, like a tarp situation, obviously for disposal for waste. So there's all types of different ways to use certain supplies. So you need to keep all of this in mind as you're packing your supply kits. Certainly any health needs, if you're on medication. I know it's difficult these days with the way insurance is. But if my dad, for example, he's a diabetic, so he has to rotate his insulin anyway, but he has extra for his supply kit. Blood pressure medicine, whatever. So with the insurance issue, it may be difficult to get an extra, the next month's supply, but talk to your doctor or pharmacist and see if you're able to do that. Yes, sir.
What I've done, and I now have a 3-month supply of my medication, is they always allow you to refill it about 10 days before it's really through. And if you write on your label of your medicine bottles the date that you can fill it, and fill it right then, in 3 months, you've got 3 weeks of extra medication.
Great idea, great idea. And again, when you go to get a new pair of glasses, if you don't want to give your old pair away, take that, put that in your emergency kit in the vehicle so you'll have an extra pair. In your emergency kit in the vehicle, keep stuff in there as far as a first aid kit, like a brand new one, a small one in there. If you have a first aid kit at home, please keep it stocked and fresh. How many people here have the habit of running around in their vehicle and they let it get below half and they let it get to the yellow light and they see how many miles they can go after the yellow light? Up here in the valley, like we were saying, it's cold 3 months out of the year. It's very hot 3 months out of the year. That might be the only place for a while that you can get any kind of relief as far as heat and or a place to cool off. So try to keep your vehicle at a minimum of half. And once you get in that habit, it works out pretty good. But if you're down at a quarter or whatever, how many people here commute? Okay, we have a lot of people that commute. Again, it's very important to have that kit in your car, even if you don't commute. Just go over some scenarios in your head of where you might be when this happens. Everybody could live in Lancaster. Everybody could be at the Palmdale Mall that day. And all of a sudden it hits, and now you're in Palmdale. I see some comfy shoes up here on the table. That's something you should have in your vehicle, and it looks like somebody's going to talk on that in a little while here. But again, pack it with water, have water in your vehicle, Have a backpack that you can carry, don't make it 50 pounds, have something you can carry, and have stuff in there that you need, like comfortable pair of shoes in the wintertime. Keep thermal underwear, sweats, warm clothes, extra pair of socks in there. In the summertime, maybe you don't need all those thermals naturally. When you change the batteries in our smoke detectors, change out your kit in the car also. Put some sunscreen hats in there. The main thing is just do some, we brought some stuff here. It looks like there are going to be a lot of good speakers tonight. Do some research on this on your own too. Get on the internet. One good thing to look at is the videos of earthquakes. They've got some great ones on there, and we kind of forget about it because it hasn't happened here, you know, in the LA area recently or whatever. So you might want to see it. They were showing the ones up by Frisco during the World Series game, and they were showing one of the colleges up there. And these are intelligent people. They're sitting in class. The earthquake hit. Within 5 seconds, everybody's running for the door, and the fake ceiling is coming down and everything. So it just shows you how people panic. Had a question, Beck?
One of the things that I noticed from especially the Haiti earthquake is tri-bar seems to be very important. And I've been thinking about it, but I can't figure out a good place to store it. Because you put it in the garage and the garage falls on it, how do you get it out? Is there a suggestion?
Correct. When you store your stuff, again, it's almost like a squirrel. You don't want it all in one spot. You know, put some in the garage. A lot of people put stuff out back in some of the temporary sheds. You can kind of split it up, and that works out good. We're going to have people talk about turning off your gas and water and everything, and where to put that tool. Again, you can buy 2 tools. Keep one in the shed, put one, you know, around the side of the house.
And just to add to that too, it might seem silly, but you might want to keep that in your kitchen or under your bed. Just like you should have extra shoes in your supply kit in your car, you should have your clothes and shoes under or near your bed. Because we know from the various earthquakes that have been occurring recently, they've not all happened early morning when we're sleeping, but a lot of ours in the past have. So you want to be ready because an example, if it does go off when we're in bed sleeping, what if you have to run through a hallway or downstairs to get out of your home? If you're barefoot, that's not going to do you any good. One of the handouts we have, also be aware of your furniture and your types of pictures and mirrors and things. Usually in hallways, we like to have mirrors or family pictures and portraits. Well, you can imagine if it's shaking hard, a lot of that's going to be falling off and breaking, and if you're barefoot, you can easily step on that and hurt yourself. So again, all these scenarios you need to think about and practice with your family. One of our handouts includes a family communication plan. Think of these different scenarios. Take a Saturday or Sunday afternoon and go through the whole of different scenarios with your family. Drills, exercise drills. If there's a fire in the house, what if it blocks the front door? How are you going to exit the home? Maybe you're all home during the earthquake, but an example I usually give, what if one of the children is up in their bedroom? Stereotypical, I'm generalizing, but mom's in the kitchen cooking. Dad might be out in the backyard or in the garage. So you're all at home, but you're in various locations of the home. So if that emergency hits, where are you going to all meet? That's part of the communication plan. And how are you all going to exit? Because you're all going to be in different locales within the home. So again, these are things you need to think about.
Just one last thing for me is when this happens and we all have the same thing. I've been through several earthquakes down in LA, Somar, and things like that. It hits all times early in the morning. You get up, you're running, you're checking on your family, you're checking on your neighbors. You're no good to anybody if you get hurt or if you get injured. So kind of slow down, take that deep breath when it does start. Because again, if you get up and you're stepping on glass, that's not going to help anybody. If you take off running quickly and sprain your ankle within the first 15 yards trying to help your family, you're not going to help anybody. So you have to make sure you're safe first before you can help anyone in your family, even in the household or wherever. Got a question over there? Yes.
I'm not native to California, so I'm this area, we're at elevation, it's sort of a mountain area. And does that affect the seismic activity as far as getting the
Yeah, I'm not being an expert on that, but we are on one of the main faults here. As you drive down through Palmdale, heading toward LA, you can look, you can see the rocks on both sides there. So it's a different little foundation up here. I'm sure more people will get into it as far as the foundation, how it's a little bit more liquid up here. For a long time, we were always bragging up here. We didn't have a lot of buildings that were more than 2 stories up here. And that was kind of a good thing. But with development now, we have the hospital, now we have the court, we have a lot of hotels up here now that are multi-story, so hopefully that's not going to be a problem with those. Yes?
One of the concerns I have, especially south of Chile, is after the earthquake, there's a lot of looting, rioting, mobs going on, and I'm sure that the police up here, the sheriff's department will be okay. So my question is, I've heard horror stories down in Northridge where people had generators going, they were like food all that stuff, moms would come over there, take everything they had. What is the policy for the city? And whenever people say when they firearms, you protect yourself, and that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
What do you normally do?
I don't represent the city. Back in '92 when the riots hit, I was a deputy and I was working the riots down there, and a lot of the law enforcement personnel from the valley up here were let go to go down there to the riot situation because there was no real problems up here to speak of. That could be different now with more population up here. It's the same thing. You have to prepare yourself physically, your mind, your body, everything on what you're going to do, and by going over different scenarios, that's one way to do it. You can only, use deadly force to protect your life, not property or whatever, but it is something to think about, and that's why if you can stay home in your house, or in your block, in your area, and it all works out good, and your neighbors are in sync with you also as far as this, it works out better as far as venturing out. I used to bring up the subject that you say you're not ready and you think you can just grab your SUV and run down to Costco and get it filled up. Maybe you're one of the first ones there, you're lucky, you get everything you need, you pay for it somehow or whatever, and you walk outside and there's 2 or 3 people that say, we're taking it from you now. So again, if you don't have to leave your area, your house, you're good. I don't know what you have set up as far as the church here, as far as people coming to the church, as far as refuge also or whatever. But again, make your house, talk to your neighbors, get that all set up with your neighbors, and just kind of prepare yourself for what might happen. Again, we talk about all good people being friendly and nice and everything, but again, take the nicest person you know, and if they've got 2 or 3 kids, and their kids haven't had water for a whole day, put yourself in their situation. As a parent, wouldn't you do kind of almost anything in a way to get them water? So again, you might even want to have extra small bottles of water that you could hand out to somebody. If they did approach your house, you could say, hey, I only have a few left, but I'll give you a couple or whatever like that, but just kind of go over scenarios. Kind of question this.
Regarding what he said, my relatives live in Silmar during the earthquake in the 71. Anyways, they were less than a quarter mile from the Veterans Hospital that collapsed, and the men in that neighborhood, there was only one way in. They just barricaded the actual street, literally barricaded it, and the men themselves actually took turns and patrolled their street. The police came by, saw that they were armed, and said, is there anything we can do for you? And they're like, no. Well, if you need anything, call us, but we see you have it under control. They're not going to get mad if you are patrolling your own neighborhood.
Correct, yeah, and that's it. I mean, it's just, in an emergency situation, it's to bring out the best of everybody. Everybody will want to help, and we might not have any problems up there, and hopefully we don't for whatever, just something to prepare you and your family. Yeah.
That's why they did that.
And that's why, again, it's best to work as a neighborhood. Besides, so number 1, obviously get your family together and then work with your neighbors. And absolutely, law enforcement's going to appreciate that, as is fire, when they see who's working together. Yes?
I keep water in the back of my car, but I worry sometimes during the summer it gets so hot. Is there any danger to the water to keep it, store-bought water bottles in the trunk of the car?
The most important thing is to pay attention to the expiration date. I believe fire is going to touch on that because I see some of the water samples up here. I actually have the same type of water that he has on display, and that water, I was told, can go from extreme heat to extreme cold. So you might want to look at that when you're done. So there are different types of packaging that will work for extreme heat and extreme cold, but the most important, no matter what, is pay attention to the expiration dates and rotate. Rotate, same with batteries and such. Yes, sir.
Expiration date has nothing to do with whether the water or whatever the product is going to be good one day and then not good the next day. That's a for sale by date. That has nothing to do with that product becoming no good. So expiration date
Well,
in this scenario has nothing to do with.
You make a good point. There is, unlike this water, the way it's packaged, water, if it does go, if you have it in general, let's say how we buy the water in the store today in the plastic clear bottles. If water is constantly going from extreme heat to extreme cold, unless it's in, like this one is a specific type of packaging, then yes, that's going to, it's going to affect the life of the water. But the expiration date is a guideline to go by. So that's why rotating your supplies is very important. Use the expiration as a guideline, but okay, embarrassing story, I'll use myself as an example. I was going through my kitchen a few months ago because I knew that I work a lot and I'm not home much and I don't eat at home much and I don't have a family, so I was cleaning out my cupboards and I found food from several years ago. So perfect example. That wouldn't help me out in an emergency situation. So I threw everything away because obviously I knew, looking at the expiration dates, it was way too old, and I went and bought everything fresh. Canned foods at home, we know those can last a long time. So a lot of it is common sense, making sure you're rotating, using expiration dates as guidelines, but make sure you have all the supplies you need, yes, for your family. Also for kids, make sure you put a supply kit together for your kids, obviously age appropriate, but let's say they're in elementary school. Glow sticks would be great because they love those. That'll be more exciting to them than just a regular flashlight. Put their favorite books, or if they love to color, their favorite coloring books and crayons and such. A lot of kids now are in the little video games if they have the little battery operated. So again, things that will keep them calm and keep them busy while you and the rest of your family and your neighbors are working to respond to the emergency. We could speak on this a lot longer. We're used to doing much longer presentations, but we have to be respectful of the time. So we'll be here later if you have questions, and we'll hand it back over to Mike.
We'd now like to hear from Captain Kerry Brisson from the LA County Fire Department.
How's that? Can you hear me? I'm not used to using one of these things at all. Thanks. I thank Mike for inviting me along. Seeing what's going on here tonight, I wish we had a lot more of these going on around our community, because we need these. In my line of work, I always see the worst, and sometimes I see the worst of people, and I see a lot of the best of people also. But when we get into major disasters, the folks before me brought up a lot of good points, and I don't think that you can ever be 100% prepared. There's a lot of points that they brought up is, where do you put your tools, where do you put your food? If your house collapses or catches on fire because of a gas leak and all your food is in your house, all that preparation you did doesn't do you any good. But, how do you plan? How do you plan for those things? It's really hard. And, they brought up a good point of just spreading stuff around a little bit, and that's, I hadn't really thought about that, but that's a real good idea, spreading stuff around. I got 2.5 acres and I got stuff spread all over the place. But not a lot of stuff that's going to do me any good in a major earthquake. But these kind of programs help you folks understand, I think, how to take care of yourself. And there was that hour of 72 hours. I've always mentioned that to people after my experiences, is you better be able to take care of yourself and your family for at least 72 hours. out there. And then I'm sure there's other documentation out there that says longer, but I'd say at least 72 hours, you better be able to take care of yourself. So what I want to do tonight is just talk a little bit about some of my experiences. And one of my big ones was Katrina, when I went back to work on the Hurricane Katrina and some things I saw back there. To back up a little bit, I've been with the fire department for, I just made 30 years. I got 2 more years to go before I retire. And looking into doing some more teaching out there of this kind of stuff and of our incident command system. Mike mentioned that ICS system. All the sheriffs, the fire department, every city, county, government all uses this incident command system, and it's a way for us as government agencies to talk the same language to each other during disasters. So, and we did this back at Katrina. I worked with some guys that came down from New York, and we all talked the same language, and we worked together, and everything worked out well. So, with that, if you can switch over to the other picture there. I'm on a federal incident management team. It's a 45-man team, basically, that goes out and manages disasters. 99% of our work is wildfires out here, because in California there's always some sort of disaster going on, and a lot of it's always fires. But I have been back. I went back for the shuttle recovery back in Texas. Met some great people in the south down there in Texas while we were doing that. I've been all over the western United States putting out fires, and ended up at Katrina and also Hurricane Wilma back in this year. But I put this picture in here because I wanted to point out, you know, most of the media event evolved around New Orleans, which is right here in the center of the hurricane, the center of the eye of that hurricane. And New Orleans got most of the media attention because of the flooding that went on there, the damage and the looting and so forth. My wife was a wreck back here because she thought that's what I was going through out there. But I was a little bit further east, over around Biloxi, Mississippi, Moss Point, Gautier, and anybody familiar with that part of the country, Mississippi? Met some great southern people down there. And you know what's amazing? We showed up there to help them, and everybody that I ran into was offering me a bottle of water or a sandwich or something. And they just had 8 feet of water or their house destroyed, but they were offering stuff to me. They're great people down there. But the point I want to make out here is this says that there was the max sustained winds 143 miles per hour and gusts of 165. And if you took a ball on the end of a string, if I just put this on. If you put a ball on the end of a string and twirl it around your head, you know, the ball's going faster way out at the end, right? Well, that's the way it happens with these storms. Out here, the wind's blowing harder. So over here in Mississippi, Alabama, they actually got hit harder than New Orleans did. But New Orleans got all press, of course. But out there was the major damage where there was houses, and I'll show you some pictures here. And Mike's going to have to try to keep me at 15 minutes here, because this may take a while. But the point is, you know, the further away you get from that eye, the stronger those winds are. And I mean, we deal with some winds up here, but our worst days up here, I live way out on the west side where there's not much protection, and I may see some gusts of 40, 45, maybe even 50 on the worst days, 50 miles an hour. Can you imagine 143 or 165 miles an hour? That's just incredible. I can't imagine that. This is the coast. This is the ocean down here with the road that goes right along the ocean. This is actually a floating casino that was in the water. I don't know the rules, the laws down there in Mississippi. They can't have casinos on land. They're all offshore. Apparently they weren't anchored for 143 mile an hour winds. So this is actually a floating building that got picked up. And see this building right here? This is a hotel that's underneath here. It's incredible that they didn't find any bodies in there. I mean, by the time this event happened, everybody was out of there. But there was numerous casinos like this that were just lifted up and set up on shore. Here's the ocean at the top again. This was solid houses all the way down here. Most of the damage was at least a quarter to a mile inland. So this is all people's belongings, scrap lumber down, which used to be their houses. This is another casino that ended up on the highway. And at this point, this is probably a week later. Some of these pictures were about 3 days after the hurricane. There's another casino. That's a casino that was like a ship, and it didn't come up on land, but it was out probably about 100 yards further out, and it just broke loose and floated into shore. I took this picture mainly because I have a son named Austin, but you can see everybody's, these were houses, and back in here, you can see some stilts there. Houses were on stilts along the shore there because they're used to the waves and the storms coming through. But that's what's left of a house. But everybody's belongings, this wave that came in from the hurricane was anywhere from 8 feet to 30 feet. I saw some marks on some buildings up at the 3- and 4-story foot level. The third or fourth story is where the water level came in at. But anyway, you can see everybody's belongings are just scattered through all the trees. These people lost everything down there. You can see people's clothes up in the trees there. One of the first things some of the local folks did that had heavy equipment is they came through and cleared the roads. You can see kind of the lumber piled up alongside the road here. Some guys with some skip loaders came through and opened up some roads so people could get through. That's just another casino that's on the wrong side of the highway there. Just more damage, more scattered. These are sea containers. That's why I brought this picture in here. There's a lot of sea containers here, those big heavy containers that come off of cargo ships. And they're scattered around up on shore. It's really amazing they didn't lose. I'm not sure how many, if they lost any lives around here. I heard lots of harrowing stories about people surviving that did stay there, that didn't leave. But it's amazing they didn't lose more lives than they did. I put this picture in here because, do we have anybody from Edison here? Did Edison come? You know, those guys at Edison Company, those power company guys, they're so used to performing after disasters. These, Edison was there right away trying to get power grids back up, and they would congregate in areas like this, which is a Walmart parking lot. That's a lot of their trucks. But I also wanted to I put this picture in here because this is the front of the store. You can see the whole front of the store is gone. And this picture doesn't show it real well, but out here, the back of the store is gone too. So when the wave came through, can you imagine a Walmart superstore, everything in there? Everything's out here in the trees for about the next mile out there. It just pushed everything out of the store, out behind the store. It just broke down the walls. It's amazing it didn't take the whole building. There's just a shot of a couple. That's a casino that was offshore, and then another one there. They used to be out here in the ocean. That's the other side of that ship. You can see where it's all tore up right there, and it just came into land. I put this picture in here because you can just see the scattered lumber and debris all around these houses. Somehow these houses survived, but over here are just slabs. You can see driveways up here going into nothing but just slabs. I mean, people lost whole houses. Yeah.
How much time did they have to effectively make the preparation?
You know what? I heard a few stories, and for these folks in this area, it's like us with earthquakes. I mean, earthquakes, you never know when they're going to happen, right? But we know that they happen here. We should prepare for them. These folks know that hurricanes happen here and that they prepare for them. What happened here at Katrina that you didn't hear a lot of is Katrina was about the third or fourth hurricane that they've been warned to evacuate this year. And all the previous hurricanes didn't do hardly anything. So it's like a crying wolf thing. So a lot of people didn't leave, and you know, some people did, obviously, but at some point they must have known that, boy, this is the big one that's hitting, and a lot of people left. You know, one point that was brought up about, somebody mentioned that in the last couple that was up here was gas. As my team flew into Atlanta, and then we got rental cars and drove down to this area. On the way, as we were driving down, there was just tons of vehicles heading from this area back up looking for gas stations. And there was gas cans, plastic gas cans, tied and strapped on top of cars, hanging out trunks, everywhere. Can you imagine driving down the 14 freeway with gas cans mounted all over tops of cars and so what kind of hazard that could be? But that's what happened. People were trying to head north to get away from the damaged area to find the gas stations that had gas so that they would have gas to run their generators and so forth. So it's, you know, that's one of those things to prepare for. How much gas can you keep around your house? Yes.
Not to take too much of your time, but I was in Mississippi during Hurricane Jamil. We went there, we'll have to keep out on that. And I naturally thought, okay, we're going down to the coast. I was in Jackson. We were going down to the coast to help with our truck. We thought generator, water. We were thinking on that mode. When we got down there, what we were asked to bring were diapers. Going back to what Shelley and Craig were talking about. We can't do anything while a baby's crying. So think according to the ages that you have. That surprised me more than anything. That I wasn't prepared for that.
There's a lot, yeah, go ahead.
What is the legal limit on gas storage at your house? I mean, how much can you store, how do you store?
If I remember right, 10 gallons. But it's supposed to be in a safety can. The safety can is a metal can that has the spring-loaded lid that closes and so forth. You know, the problem with gasoline nowadays, I don't know if any of you are aware, it just doesn't last. You know, gasoline, if you put it in a container, especially a plastic container, only has a lifespan of about a month or so before it starts going bad. If any of you, like me, have motorcycles, you know, it's a constant deal to keep fresh gas in the tanks when they just sit in the garage for a while. So, to answer your question, I believe the legally is 10 gallons. Yes.
They do have a chemical out there called Sable.
Yeah, they do.
Gas, and it will extend the life of the gasoline nowadays.
That's a good idea.
We store gas in a motorcycle for a year. And
Yeah.
right up.
I put it in my boat every year. I do that, so it doesn't come up the carburetor. Yeah. Yeah, and that's part of being prepared. And since you mentioned that, you know, one thing, like I said, my wife was in a panic because she was watching the news and seeing all the shootings and looting going on in New Orleans. Over here, that's exactly what people were doing. There were people gathering in the neighborhoods, cooking for each other, collection of food. People had different connections with getting food or somebody who brought food down. The military was showing up there where we were at, and we were kind of set up in an airport to start with, and the military helicopter they wouldn't even land. They'd just hover over the runway, open up their doors, and they'd shove boxes of water and MREs. MREs they mentioned that earlier, the meals ready to eat. It's just the packaged food, freeze-dried food, and so forth. Yeah.
It was sad because we lost power and water, everything for 2 weeks solid. South Carolina's big on pine trees. We
Yeah. Well, they ended up with distribution centers eventually. Initially, we just would load food, water, wherever we could into vehicles, and as we're just kind of driving around, we just passed things out as we saw the need. And then eventually they had to end up with distribution centers, but one of the issues with distribution centers is how do you get the word out to the people where the distribution centers are. In this area, for maybe the first week, there was no power, no water, no sewer, no telephones, no handline, there was not even cell phones. The cell towers are down. So there was absolutely zero communication anywhere. The only communication was people driving around, passing out flyers, and then FEMA showed up and started passing out flyers on how to get in contact with FEMA and so forth. Yeah.
So the lessons learned from there, how does that apply to us?
Be prepared. You can't be on.
How long, if there's a big earthquake up there, how long until distribution centers are set up? How long until hospitals are available?
I would like to say that here on the West Coast, the way that our emergency services are, the amount of money that you folks and me pay in taxes, that we are very well prepared. And I don't think that we would have the complete devastation. We may have this devastation as far as property goes, but as far as the lack of services and so forth, I'd like to say that our government services will be there. But I always tell everybody also, don't count on it. Don't count for, like I said, at least 72 hours. You better be able to take care of yourself. Because we're going to be busy. Fire department's going to be busy. The sheriffs are going to be busy taking care of all the situations that are going on around this town. The hospitals are going to be inundated with people that are hurt. So, this is the perfect way of getting prepared for the situation. I put this in here, of course, who always shows up? The president's got to show up. And the reason, not that I didn't like the president showing up, but you talk about creating havoc around. We're there trying to help, trying to coordinate some rescue efforts and so forth. And when the president shows up around anywhere, everything comes to a halt. And it's not just him, it's the governor shows up or some other politicians. A lot of things come to a screaming halt. And that even happens on brush fires. Have you guys seen some of the news reports of our brush fires this last year down south in the station fire that we had? And the governor shows up and does this little speech. You cannot believe how everything comes to a halt while the governor is around. All the aircraft in the air comes to a halt because they don't want any other helicopters in the air while he flies in. It's it's a huge deal for us, but anyway, that's why I put this in. 5 minutes, huh? These are the types of houses. There's some beautiful houses along the shoreline there. Very patriotic people there. You can see the flag flying under there, but you can see the bottom story of this house. Those aren't stilts. That was part of the porch. That was the bottom. This is the bottom story of the house, but it's gone. The wave just went through and took out the bottom story. This is just a two-story condo. You can't see it, but up here we found some furniture, some lazy boy chairs and some beds and stuff that were still on the second floor up there. And there's some markings on here. You probably can't see it, but there's some yellow or orange markings, and that's search and rescue teams showed up here from all over the nation, and they were just going down each street doing search and rescue to make sure that there wasn't anybody trapped in these houses. This is a fire station. We stopped and talked to these guys. This is a fairly new station in Biloxi, Mississippi, and these guys just finished squeegeeing out their apparatus floor, that's where they park their engines and their water truck right here. And the story they told us was that night they were all in the station, and when the major wave hit their station, the water started coming up in their station. They ended up putting on life vests because they apparently had some in the station. But an 8-foot wave of water came through the station. They were all locked arms, holding on to a center pole that's in the middle of the apparatus floor there. They just held on and floated in the water for over 2 hours. And everything in the station just got washed away. These guys hadn't even been home. This is about 3 or 4 days later, after the hurricane, and they hadn't even been home yet, some of them to check on their families, because they had no way, their cars had gone. They had no way to go anywhere. They were trying to get these engines running because everything was flooded and so forth. Emergency services were destroyed there, yes.
You said that cell phones, everything was out.
Yes.
How would you communicate then to let people know that, yeah, I'm not dead?
Ham radio.
Ham radio was a big thing there for a while. There was a few ham operators that worked, not so much with me on my side, but I know that they were working with the search and rescue teams and so forth. But if you know anybody that's a ham radio operator, but like you said, I mean, these guys are just a few miles of work away from their families. How are they going to get in touch with their families? How do they know where their families are at? Yes.
I know that Terry needed water after you put time together, or there's some radio operators that are there. When we talk about putting some stuff on how we do it,
Good idea. But it's a tough thing to deal with. No. There's not, how many ham radio operators are there out there nowadays?
There's a lot now.
There's a lot? Okay.
Carmel Valley's a lot.
That's good. That's good.
We have some good friends at Sacramento where they were assigned by the church to travel up and down Oregon, Washington, California, teaching, ham radio.
Yeah.
And we signed up. Every ward, every state was supposed to have one. And that was their job, to go in and set up a system in every state,
Good.
in 3 states.
But that's the only way, you know, and even a ham radio operator has to have his antenna up, right?
Yep.
So, and power. So, let me get through here. Just another fire station. You know, we were set up in a high school eventually. I saw these signs in the classroom that I was sent up. And I only picked a couple of them, but this says, before you were born, your parents weren't as boring as they are now, working for a living to pay for your bills, clean your clothes, and listen to you talk about how cool you are. Neighbor Highway. Television is not real life. TV is entertaining. TV is fun. Real life is work. You can turn TV off. Life you cannot. The work of life goes on and on and on. If you mess up, it's not your parents' fault. It's not your teacher's fault. It's not your coach's fault. It's your fault. So stop whining and learn from your mistakes. These were in a high school. Can you imagine these being on the wall in a high school out here nowadays? Somebody would be offended by these, I think, wouldn't they? I just thought, and there was about 20 of these on the wall. It was really good. Like I said, the people there were great. There was signs up all over the place, you know, thanking us for being there. We were happy to be there. Just another shot of the devastation. Here's the ocean back here. This is how far it went in. This is all people's houses here. That just piles of lumber and so forth. And that's a casino right there. You can see how far inland it went. Like I said, the damage was anywhere from a quarter mile to a mile in to sometimes even further. This is the main highway right here. And of course, these were all houses. These were some pretty nice places. Everybody had their own little boat dock and so forth. We're talking some high dollar places. That was a restaurant. The military was there. After about the 3rd or 4th day, we saw them starting to show up, taking control. Not taking control, but just kind of patrolling around. And like I said, there wasn't the issues going on here. Those were all houses at some point. Big church. Somebody's Boulevard of Broken Dreams. This is one you talk about communicating. This says, I think it has an address, and it says Hart. The guy's last name, H-A-R-T-E, is alive. That's what we saw a lot in signs, just hanging in trees where houses used to be, just to let people know that they were alive. Some more damage. You can kind of see the corner of the tent. These folks set up a tent in their front yard. That's where they were living. This is a harbor, and this is all a bunch of boats that are in the parking lot now. Yeah, dry dock. The casino. Just some more damage. Another casino. I know Mike's tapping my foot over here to hurry up. So this is all people's houses and all their belongings out of here. A lot of this was out in the ocean about a quarter mile. The ocean was kind of quiet there. It wasn't like those big waves and stuff. So when the wave came in, broke everything down, and then when the wave came back out, it didn't break the first time or tear down, it tore down as it came back out. And it just pulled everybody's belongings out into the ocean. Some more boats. There was probably a pretty good used boat sale going on after this. Another fire station. I thought this was interesting. This is a trailer. I thought at first when I saw this picture, this was a trailer that got stuck up there. But these guys, this is a casino. They winched this trailer up here, and these are slot machines. That was a big deal there. There was a lot of money still in these slot machines. And talk about if there was any looting going on, it was around these casinos. It just shut off. I probably wore the battery out. Anyway, we're almost done here. The South will rise again. You talk about some strong people down there in the South. There was a lot of signs like this around there. Looters will be shot. Yeah, we talked about protecting yourself and so forth. I didn't see anybody out just walking around patrolling with guns in their hands or anything, but there was plenty of these signs out.
That's because people think the Southerners are serious.
Yes.
You don't mess with Southerners.
That's right.
In California, you've got everybody, so you don't know what you have.
Yeah. So I took a few shots in these signs. One thing they have left, we have bullets left. Friends and lawmen are welcome, and looters will die. They were pretty serious. This was a big issue that started happening around there was fires. All these houses are torn down. You know what happens with scrap lumber. Burns real quick and real easy. There was no water system. When fires started like this, it was, there's nothing you can do. There's no water to put any fires out. Yes?
So here, where we don't have drainage water, in general, when fires first start, like in your neighborhood, how do you handle that after an earthquake? As, would you do anything different
Well, don't let your house catch on fire. Can you hear me? Okay. Mike's telling me I'm out of time, so I think this is the last picture. Big Navy hospital ship came in to help out, and I didn't get a picture of it, but emergency housing became a big thing to house the people that were still in the area. And they actually, a couple cruise ships came in, and they actually ported some cruise ships there and put people on cruise ships. Well, you can't believe the number of people that were looking for housing then once the cruise ships came in. A lot of people were taking care of themselves, living in their tents in their front yards. But when the cruise ships came in, they wanted part of that. Anyway, if there's anything that I can say, like I said at the very beginning, these kind of meetings, these are great to prepare you for, kind of open up everybody's eyes so that you don't become a burden to the emergency services out there. And I'm not saying if you need us, we're going to come help you. We're going to do our best to get to you. But you want to be able to take care of yourself for the first at least 72 hours, yourself and your family. So, any other questions real quick?
Another fire department supports the search program. Do you see a lot of search volunteers out there?
No. And I don't know if they had the CERT program going there, but that is Scott Polgar up here, if you guys are interested. That is a great program to teach how you guys can help out the community. Anything else? That's not mine. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Next, we'd like to have Dan Shea from Southern California Gas Company.
I don't think I'll need that. My wife and kids tell me I don't need a microphone. I think you'll probably all agree. So I think we'll just kind of go with that. But my name's Dan Shea. I'm the operations manager for the gas company here locally in Antelope Valley. Been with the gas company for 32 years. Out of the 32 years, I've worked up here for 22 years ago, I came here as a supervisor when the housing boom was going on in the late 80s. Left a couple different times for promotions and kind of settled here the last time about 5 years ago as the operations manager and have no plans to leave again in my career. So hopefully the gas company cooperates with my wishes. And I've lived in Palmdale for most of the time up here. Just recently moved up to Tehachapi about 2 years ago, and I'm a member of the Tehachapi ward up there after living in Palmdale for many years. So I'm just going to give you some real basic stuff about the gas company, and I've got the meter here, and you can certainly come up afterwards and we can just let you walk through shutting it off, but I'm going to give you some real basics on it. Got a couple of different brochures here. You've all got the green one. I've got another one here I'll talk about having to do with water heaters and keeping that secured for a couple different reasons. But the gas company out here, I'm proud of the operation out here. We're a lot of different bases like we have out here in Lancaster. We have one in Mojave servicing all the way up into Tehachapi and all the way down into Aquidulce, and then there's another district there. But this base itself, a lot of people that live here locally work for the company right here. They've been here for years. In the gas company, we're in the top 5 as far as customer satisfaction, and in the top 5 as far as the quality of work that we provide for you people. So we are here to serve you. That is our goal. Okay, and you can call us anytime for whatever you need. There's some things that we can and cannot do based on requirements or conflicts with plumbing codes and what we can do, but we can do just about everything that you need us to do, and we can certainly address the emergencies that come up. And so don't hesitate to call us. We have people on call all hours of the night. And if you have a problem, there's no gas or anything. But that's the main thing I'm going to talk about is the idea about earthquakes. And we've got natural gas out there. We've got it flowing to your house. Up to the regulator here, we're dealing with 25 to about 40 pounds. Once it hits this regulator, it goes down to less than a pound going into the meter and into your house, supplies to all your appliances. What takes place in an earthquake is a lot of times earthquake happens, but it doesn't necessarily break anything. But a lot of people will just shut the gas off just because it was an earthquake. Don't do it. Okay? We've only got a certain amount of workforce out here, and you could be out of natural gas in your homes for many days as we try to turn everybody else on. And it's just not necessary, but that's one of the things we really push. If you smell natural gas, how many people have smelled natural gas before? Okay, it smells pretty bad, doesn't it? Okay, well, gas company puts that odor in there for you. Natural gas is odorless. We put that odor in there, and it does smell bad, and that's so that you can smell it and you can determine that you've got a gas leak. So when that occurs and you smell it, that's when we want you to shut it off. A lady talked to me here earlier about earthquake valves. Gas company at one point was in the business of installing them. We don't do them anymore. It's good for a lot of reasons, but also a little bit of a tremor can shut your gas off, and you really don't have any leakage. And then again, we have to, get out there and fire you back up again. It's going to take some time. But some of the simplest things you can do is the gas in this position, and you can come up here afterwards after we're all done here, and I can demo this for you and have you do it. The gas is flowing as this piece of this shutoff is up and down. The gas is actually flowing into your system. The simplest thing you can do is get a wrench from a hardware store that's just made for this type of thing. You can get a crescent wrench. It's adjustable. And I suggest you designate a wrench to the gas meter. Okay? And all you have to do is turn this to the location to where it's crossways and the gas is shut off. Now, once you shut it off, you want to leave it off, okay? You get an idea that you don't have a leak and you didn't smell gas to start with, but you did shut it off, leave it off, okay? Let the experts come out and actually turn it on, okay? So, again, it's just a real simple thing. Some people get a wrench like this from a hardware store, they use a bit of wire, they put it on right at the gas meter, and that's all it's designated for. They tie it on there. That's really a good way to go. Some people designate a wrench like this, and they have it sitting in their garage, and they say, okay, when I head out to the gas meter, I'm going to take this with me, and then lo and behold, you got kids that work on bicycles and stuff, and you go for this wrench, like many of my other tools, and they're not there, okay, because they've used them. So I do suggest you get something. This is kind of a multitask tool that I got at one of the hardware stores. It shuts off the gas and opens up the concrete lid to your water. It has a valve, shut-off term. You can break something with this if you need to. But a simple one that you can designate is really something like this. And it's really just a simple thing. But I can't emphasize enough not to shut the gas off just because we had an earthquake. Because we have a lot of, yes, back there. Well, we don't want you to, because we want to go out there as the experts and turn it on. At that point, we're going to go through a whole procedure that we have in place when we turn it back on to make sure that you don't have a leak, and also to fire up your appliances and make sure they're working properly. Because even with a tremor, you can end up getting, you know, the lines underground can rattle a little bit, and you might get some debris that comes up in through there. You'll end up with burners on your stove that aren't burning properly and stuff. And we come back out there and we clean all that stuff up for you, make sure it's a nice blue flame again. So we just recommend you don't. People turn to plumbers, you know, and plumbers can go out there and do it and everything, but once we shut it off, we really tell everybody, leave it off, we'll come back. Just give us a call. Anything you do, 800 number is in the phone book. You know, anything that takes place at your house, you can certainly call us. We're going to come out, like I said, any hours of the day, first in the front and then in the back here.
Can you just show them how much you turn to test
yes,
it?
Yes, absolutely. Again, we're in a position here where we're just, the gas is flowing straight up and down, and it's just following this line. And all you're going to do is you're going to do a quarter of a turn, okay? And it's going to be shut off, and it's going to be sideways, and that's going to be all you need to do. Debbie mentioned earlier that she went out there and looked at her meter and had a wrench, and she couldn't move. And she called the gas company. Gas company came out. We replaced this valve because a lot of times, because you might have been in your house 20, 30 years, a little bit of rain and rust and everything, this thing may get to where you can't turn it. So we came out there, replaced it, and we got it going. So, but if you are going to experiment with it, just give a little bit of movement on it, just to make sure it moves nice and freely, and then you'll know you're ready to go. Some people go to the extent of covering it up, you know, with some plastic and that, try and keep it from rusting and that. Again, they put these in plastic bags. They put these in plastic bags and hang them here at the meters. You know, you can do all that stuff for, you know, so you're ready for them. But again, you can come up and see me afterwards. I've got a handout here about water heaters. I want to mention that too. A couple of things about water heaters, strapping them. This shows you how to strap them. It actually has a picture here on the manufacturer of this packet. You want to strap it for two different reasons. Anybody think about the two different reasons? What's the first one? Well, no one wants to steal it. That wasn't one of the two, but that's good though too. First one is you don't want the water heater falling off, because there is a connection that goes there from the gas, and if it does fall off, it's going to break that connection. You will have to leave. The other one is, just depending on the size of your water heater, you've got 30 to 50 gallons of water right there. You want to keep that in an upright position, because that water is going to be very valuable to you. So strapping it, it's going to be there for you, and you're going to need it. So very important. So gas leak and keeping the water. So the main brochure that you've got a bunch of little tips of the same kind of stuff I'm talking about. It talks about furnaces and everything in here as far as keeping your furnaces and your filters cleaned up. This is another handout I have. I got pens and pencils here for you, so you can remember the gas company and to give us a call. So yes, in the back.
The water inside the gas line, you cannot drink it. What is it? Just water?
No, you can use it. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. There's settlement in it, but that's the same water that's going in through your house, you know, on a regular basis. So yeah, there's no problem drinking it. As your water heater gets older, you're going to get less and less capacity in there, though. You know, keep that in mind too. Yes, over here. Well, they are being installed by other people, but not the gas company. Yeah. No, I wouldn't suggest that. It's just that we've taken the position that it gets triggered and it gets shut off, and then we have to come out there and start it back up again. Businesses, you know, definitely good for businesses. I'm just not, you know, gonna. I guess I'm not gonna really say that it's a good thing, you know, to have it shut off, just like a person that goes out there because they don't smell gas. So they do get triggered on tremors, and they do get shut off, and then you do have to unfortunately wait. I mean, if you've got a good nose and you've got a tool available and you have an earthquake and you smell it, then that's, you know, in a lot of cases is good, or if not better, than the earthquake valve that's going to trip on every occasion. Does that answer your question? Yeah. I'm not really recommending them, but we have installed them before. But for businesses, for office buildings, for you know, churches, stuff like that, yeah, I would recommend it. Yes. In the back there first. I'm sorry.
Just as a personal experience with the earthquake, I lived in a hospital a while that had one was in it, and it was right by where the kids play basketball, and every time the ball,
Yeah, it does happen.
shut off, and then we had to have the gas come out, the gas to take out, turn it all back on. It was really pain,
Yeah.
but, you know,
Yeah. I will tell you that when we have chronic ones like that we will come out there the first time, but after numerous times we will actually be seen looking about charging somebody, because sometimes those earthquake valves are not very supportive either. They're installed by different plumbing companies and that, and they really don't have a real good rigid part, so even somebody bumping up against it, you know, give it a little bit of a shimmy, sometimes they'll go off too. So I had a question, I think,
I was just going to say, down in San Fernando Valley, it's required.
Yes, it is.
To be on houses, anytime you have a transfer ownership, yeah, right.
Yes, it is.
Certification is there.
Yeah, yes, it is. I'm glad I work up here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in the back there, yes.
what about the mainline break?
Mainline break, they do happen. They happen actually not as much as they used to, because they're kind of tied into how much construction going on in the valley. But we have them just as dig-ins. You know, people are digging and they break the main line in the street. And yeah, we get out there in force, and sometimes we end up having to shut off you know, several blocks in order to control the gas. Sometimes we suit up in fresh air, what we call fresh air equipment, to get in there and fight the gas. The natural gas itself is not toxic. It's a lack of oxygen that we have when we actually get down there and actually try to control the gas leak. So, but they do happen, and in earthquakes, yes. Most of the valley out here, the newer areas and stuff, are installed with polyethylene plastic, main and services. So there is a little bit of stretch and give on that. They do break easy, but they're also easy to fix and get them back into service real quickly. So a lot of the new homes out here are built like that. On a main line, you wouldn't be able to do that. The gas company would have to come out there and actually start digging some holes. During the 84 earthquake, or 94 earthquake in Northridge, we didn't have any damage up here. All our crews and everything, including myself and everything, were all assigned down there, and we were digging up mains and getting them under control. And areas that, you know, when you do have a main leak and you can't, you know, get it shut off right away because of resources, you know, you really need to look at shutting everybody off to eliminate the gas sources, the flame, you know, the ignition sources. You want to eliminate any you know, person there, block it off, traffic control, all those things, and keep it as safe as you possibly can as we do move equipment into the area. We were pretty swamped down below when the time came, but you know, we will do our best, and you know, hopefully we don't have a lot of those when we do have a quake. We may have to drop way back and shut off numerous neighborhoods all at one time in order to control areas that take place, you know, like that. So yeah, that's a good question. Let's try right here for next.
I don't think I heard you say it, but at the Lake LA, when sex workers have, they usually do is in the sale remember is not to turn on, not to turn off.
Yes, good point. Yeah, good point. Yeah, anything, you know, typical, you want to see where you're going, so you flip on a light switch, or you have a phone with you that, anytime, you even answer a cell phone, there's actually a spark that goes along with it and everything. Don't turn on lights, don't use a lighter, to see your way around, or a candle, or any of those things until you're absolutely sure that you don't have a gas leak, and shut the gas off. But yeah, that's a really good point. Thanks for bringing that up. Yeah. Back over there first, I'm sorry.
So I'm jumping a little bit back to what you said about if your neighborhood has a gas main, what do? You turn your gas off?
If you smell gas at your location at that point, yeah, I would suggest that you turn your gas off at that house, because it's going to be drifting, and of course we don't have any real wind here, right? So it just goes straight up. Yeah, right.
So what you want to do is, you have, say, out the street, 3 houses down, you can see that there is a fire gas main, break, whatever. You turn your power off, your gas off, and you get out of there, or what?
Only if you actually smell gas, and I would probably just recommend that you evacuate your location and stand out in the street. The gas company will be there, will start going through a procedure to see about, how affected it is, where the wind's blowing. It will dissipate because it is lighter than air, but you will get an odor in the air sometimes just because you have a leak sometime, down the block. But I wouldn't suggest you immediately shut it off. You really want to just vacate the house if you don't feel safe in your house. And don't go to the extent of opening windows or any of that other stuff. Just go ahead and leave yourself. So that's a good question over here.
My other question to start is, what is the guideline on starting a fire or something like that after an earthquake? Is there a certain time period, so if you want to put some food rather than just eat MRE or whatnot, or boil some water? Is there a guideline of like 24 hours after, or?
As far as cooking with natural gas?
Well, just cooking in general, like outside, because if there's natural gas, from somebody else's house, or if there's...
Well, again, I would really go with the odor on whether you smell it or not. And, if you don't smell the gas, then, it's not going to be there. So. One last question. I think I have a gentleman here in the white. One last question, and I really need to move on and let other people.
Just a question. A lot of people out in Clinton with big propane cans. Are you authorizing the city to have those in the backyard? What's the size of them?
Well, that again is a different department altogether, different company. Propane compared to natural gas. I mean, we deal with natural gas. So I really couldn't answer any questions on that. But I will tell you that, propane is heavier than air, so it has a tendency to settle, which makes it, more dangerous to have, and it needs to, you have to be aware of that. But other than that, I'm a gas man, and I got gas company stock, so I say go natural gas every chance you get. Anyway, thank you for your time. And, feel free to see me afterwards, and I'll be around here afterwards. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Mark Van Gilder. I work with Mike as a public works inspector. I'm also a building inspector. He tells me that I have 3.5 minutes. So we'll see how we do with this. This thing that I'm passing out is maybe just a little outline to keep me from rambling too long. It's not an official document. I encourage you to throw it away or draw pictures on it as we go. But we're just going to try to read through it and cover the area of. I try to approach this like if I would, you're the homeowner. What are you doing with your home? And I wrote it up from a really practical perspective, not preparedness. You guys are all over preparedness. And so I'm looking at it from a perspective of, as you as a homeowner, a father, a mother, what do you do to react to a catastrophe? And so I'm going to approach it from just that and leave the preparedness to you guys or the pros. By the way, the great presentations, if there's anything in here that has already been mentioned that has been more thoroughly mentioned, refer to them, not to me. Okay? So let's start with it. If you've got your copy here. In an effort to become more prepared as homeowners, concerning practical reactions to catastrophic event, whether natural or man-made, we can approach this subject categorically by grading the severity level by the number of vital utilities negatively affected by the event, i.e. the first utility interrupted would constitute a level 1 event, and any additional utility loss becomes a level 2 event, and so on. Your sign outside says disaster survival. So whether you call it a catastrophe or a disaster, it's something that's going to knock out something in your home that you normally have, you're used to having. So let's look at it this way. And this is, like Mike said earlier, this is a fend for yourself sort of thing. Yes, you can call Dan, you can call the gas company, if you have time, if the phones aren't down. So many of these things that you would normally think, well, I can do this and I can do that, many times you won't be able to do that. Level 1, any sustained power outage exceeding 4 hours for any reason. The reason a simple sustained power outage can become dangerous is that we forget what electrical element or appliance was energized when the power was interrupted, and the possible consequences should the power come back on without notice. I have trouble remembering what I turned on or what I turned off on a normal daily basis. So we heard earlier from Craig that he went through a situation where there was a power outage. He went to the store. It was a very, very different environment. Things we take for granted just were not there. When you're at your home and the power goes out and it's out for more than a little bit of time, what did you have on? What were you running? What were you doing? If the power comes back on, would that appliance cause a problem? You know, we've all seen the story. You're driving out of your driveway to go on vacation. Did I leave the iron on? You know, those sort of simple things on a simple power outage. That power coming back on can have consequences. Step 1, turn off anything that might have been on at the moment of power failure and unplug the ones most dangerous. A lot of our appliances nowadays, we only know that they're on when they're on power. They have a little LED light or something like this. Sometimes when the power goes out, you can't tell whether it's on or not. You can unplug it. Step 2, involving an outage lasting longer than 4 hours or possible damage to power lines, turn off the house power at the breaker panel. We don't have Edison here today. We were hoping to have Edison, but Edison's responsibilities stop at the breaker panel. They supply power to your home. It's your responsibility after the breaker panel. So if this power is going to be off, you know that there's a damage in the area, and you're going to protect your home from a power surge, a breakage in your home, a line that's broken inside your wall that you can't see because of an earthquake, because part of your house is damaged. You turn the power off of the breaker, you're safe. You may have power to your breaker panel, but you're not ready to have it to your house until you assess the damage. Step 3, exercise caution when energizing the home, turning on only the circuit breaker at one circuit breaker at a time, and so as to safely troubleshoot the house electrical system. You can do that if you go to your breaker panel and you have the main off. That's one thing, but you also have circuits, each one circuit in your house controlling certain areas of your house. And you can troubleshoot your own house by having somebody inside and turning one breaker on at a time to see if that particular room is safe to energize or not. You could also, if you are here again on your own, nobody to call, no way to call them, if you can have sustained power to your house, and you can have part of your house energized and part of it not. Level 2 event. Any event involving gas and electric utilities, the mere fact that this scenario exists implies that some catastrophe has occurred. The 3 steps already discussed can be repeated with the gas system. And let's skip over this because Dan did such a good job with the gas. Let's kind of cut to the chase here. Dan has told you how to deal with the gas system so well. I'm just going to say when we start escalating the levels here of severity of the catastrophe, as soon as you involve 1, 2, and 3 utilities, that usually tells you that the catastrophe or the disaster has escalated. Now, when we start talking about the severity of a disaster, our minds can go anywhere from a simple power outage that we've discussed all the way to some sort of Hollywood sci-fi scenario. And so I'm not trying to point at one or the other. I'm just trying to say You as a homeowner, what have you depended on? Most of us have it's been so long supplied with a constant source of electricity, gas, and water that we don't even know how to react when we run into a problem, when we lose one or more of those utilities. And it does throw us into a survivalistic scenario. And there's lots of things you can do to prepare it, but there's some things you need to do to react. And shutting things off can protect you no matter whether it's gas, electric, or the next one. Level 3 event is when water, gas, and electricity has been affected. Though the loss of water supply does not appear to present a dangerous problem, the inability to extinguish a fire is a disaster in itself. And there is very little we can do to prevent the situation. A little bit ago, we heard that what do? Don't let your house catch on fire, because if you don't have a way to put it out, then it's going to burn. It's all going to burn. I built a house not too many years ago up in the mountains, big log home up at the top of the mountain in Lake Arrowhead. And one of the things that they had us do, because this is a wood house in the middle of a fire zone, they had us install a whole sprinkler system inside the house. The problem was, we found out as we were building this thing, even though it was a $30,000 fire system, that the water pressure at that point was only 30 pounds. Not even enough to operate the fire system. So then they had us install another $15,000 booster pump system, okay, to put the water into the fire sprinklers. Come to find out, the first thing that goes out on that mountain is the energy, is electricity. So what's going to run the motor to the booster pump to power the fire system? Don't let your house catch on fire. Okay. So prevention, being smart. Okay, all right. I now have 4 minutes. Okay. In case of loss of water, it is important to think as far ahead as possible. We've already heard. Step 1, preserve all water sources containing potable water, such as your water heater and your toilet tanks. We don't want to drink out of a toilet tank, even though that would be drinkable water. But there are lots of things you're going to need water for besides drinking. And you don't want to take your nice bottle of water to wash your hands or to wash a wound or to wash this sort of thing necessarily. You have water sources that you can use. Next page. Though not as dangerous to the occupants, damaged water lines can nearly destroy a home and render it unlivable. Refer again to the first 3 steps mentioned, shutting off the water supply at the street or a meter valve, a water valve key, wrench that we were talking about is very helpful. This one has, as Dan mentioned, a slot for your water meter in the bottom. You could probably store this thing right in your meter hole if you wanted to, because it's not a rusting, it won't rust. It's also, as we talked about, it might be used as a tool for looters, but pretty mean looking thing. Level 4. This level surpasses the loss of utilities and encompasses structural damage to your home. Structural damage issues are the most complex and subject to many factors, such as the location, type, and size of the age of the construction. Now, this is probably where I would probably take more time, because as a building inspector, as a builder, as a public works inspector, this is where the situation is escalated now to be very, very dangerous. This is where I'd like to say, the bigger your home, the badder it is. And so size does matter. It's a difficult thing when your home, your precious home, your sanctuary, this is where your safety, whole safety mind is for your family. Now your home is damaged, and it's structurally damaged. And so you got to be very careful. Therefore, it is best for the homeowner to trust the critical determination of a building professional. The building inspector will assess the damage after the event to determine the extent of the structural compromise. That's where, like Dan was saying, Captain Kelly was saying, people will come around and help you assess how bad a trouble you're in, how severe the situation is. Step 1 is, when in doubt, don't. If your home appears unsafe, do not stay in the house until it can be inspected. That's dangerous too, because your home can appear safe, and not be safe, or it can appear very damaged and still be someplace you might want to be. It's a very difficult thing for a homeowner to assess readily. But I trust we're all adults, and so if you're looking at your home and you say, hey, I can still stay in there, then go for it. That's your home. That's the only safety and security you've got. Step 2, adhere to the tag attached to the home by the inspector. The information on the colored card is crucial to anyone concerned about the safety of this structure. Now, I did bring some mock-up cards, but we don't have time to go into them. And I understand that you as a community of people know the basic concept behind the green card or the yellow card or the red card. A building inspector will place on your home a card that says this house is safe, or it's not so safe, or it's totally unsafe. It's very important to pay attention to that card. Sometimes rescue workers will make marks on the house. This house has been designated not to harbor people who are injured. This house can be lived in or not lived in. And so it's very important to pay attention to those things. Anybody who's going into that house will read that card and see the factors in that card that are unsafe and be able to know how safe that house actually is. And that's very important to remember. Okay, let's wrap it up. Level 5, at this stage your home is obviously an uninhabitable and not someplace you and your family want to be. Step 1, leave the house through the shortest route without collecting belongings. Get out of the house. Like we talked about earlier. Your safety, if you go to the shortest window, the shortest door, out of your house, out of that compromised structure, you possibly can go around the outside and help somebody else. If you try to go through the house and you get smashed, you can't help anybody. Okay, so get out of the house. But this is still your home, filled with your property and belongings. We saw people living in tents. This is your house. This is everything you have sometimes. Stay with your house. Step 2, safely follow the utility steps to reduce the possibility of fire damage. You know, this is where, like Dan said, if you're on the outside of your house and you smell gas, you go to your meter, you shut your meter off at that point, because now your house could burn. You could burn with you on the outside, even though it's crumpled, all your belongings, money, assets are in that house. So that's when you shut your meter off. Step 3, if safe, stay nearby until official help can be rendered. Only re-enter the house with professional assistance or after structural compromise issues have been addressed. You're going to be in a place of, you're in shock, you're possibly injured, but it's very, very important, if it's safe, to stay with your house, stay with your family, stay where people can find you, stay where agencies can help you, stay right there and protect your belongings. We talked about protection, we talked about all kinds of different means of protection, but as a building official, what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to get to your house, we're going to try to help you ascertain whether you can be there or not, what can be done to make the house livable, how to stay with your house, because we don't want a bunch of people necessarily going to one of those places where now they have to be fed. Especially you guys, you've got provisions in your house. You may have to dig through some rubble to get to them, so stay with your house and wait for help. Okay? Thank you.
Brothers and sisters, we